Apologies everybody, we do have some technical difficulties going on with Facebook this evening, so I've actually gone onto my phone and I will be going live direct from my phone. I can actually remove this because it's having nothing whatsoever to do with me. So apologies everybody, we've experienced some technical difficulties, so we are late getting started this evening. My name's Lynne Doherty and I'm the leader of West Berkshire Council. I'm also the ward member for Newbury Speen, and I'm joining you this evening to talk to you about our recovery and renewal strategy as we emerge from COVID. So first of all, before I do that, a couple of housekeeping bits. As I say, we've already experienced some technical difficulties. I'm now on my own mobile phone, so I hope that I can stay with you and I can see people are watching. The other thing I just wanted to add before I get started is we've been doing some surveys and questionnaires and asking people what is the best format for them for these types of sessions. So just stick with us for this particular one. We do know that people have said to us they prefer evenings. We also know that people are saying that there'd be some different formats which would be appreciated. So we're looking at both YouTube streaming and Twitter streaming so that we can make these as interactive as possible and reach as many people as we possibly can. So please stick with us with that. Before I go on to talk to you all about our recovery and renewal strategy, I think it's just worthwhile spending a few moments reflecting on obviously the Prime Minister's announcement yesterday about the pausing of the current roadmap and what that means here in West Berkshire. I know a lot of people were really hopeful that we'd be able to move forward to no restrictions and see life return to as near to normal as we possibly can, and that hasn't sadly been the case because of the increasing numbers that we're seeing across the country of the Delta variant and the rises in numbers of those testing positive for COVID. Just so you're aware, here in West Berkshire our numbers actually have not spiked in the way that our near neighbours have spiked. We currently sat at around 26 per 100,000 people cases here in West Berkshire. So we've been around that mark for a while, so slight ups and downs depending on particular outbreaks, but we haven't seen the spikes that other areas have seen. With regards to the Delta variant, obviously our near neighbours of both Reading and Wokingham are currently going through surge testing of that particular variant. We haven't got the numbers that they have got. We currently have 21 confirmed cases here in West Berkshire. We will potentially see that increase because I think it's important just to make everybody aware that there's always a time lag. So what we need to do is when we have PCR tests, so the tests that you go to the Newbury Showground and have those types of tests as opposed to the lateral flow tests, those tests are sequenced, so they're tested to see what particular variant of COVID they are, and there is about a 2-week time wait between the labs coming back on those. So at the moment we have 21 confirmed cases of the Indian variant, Delta variant as it's been known, and we haven't seen the numbers that our neighbours have. That means we're not currently surge testing. However, I would say that we have a surge test plan and we're ready to activate that if necessary, if and when necessary. So just to let you know that. I know lots of people will be very disappointed with regards to the keeping of the current restrictions, particularly around our hospitality and leisure industries, and we're having conversations about what support we're able to give to those particular industries. I know in the past they've been having the different grants from us, so looking at what potential we have to give that support, because I know there'll be a lot of disappointed people with particular emphasis around the hospitality industry. The rule of 6 indoors remains in place. However, I know that those people that were planning a wedding nearby will be feeling slight relief because we won't be weddings will still go ahead. I think it's just worthwhile mentioning that those wedding numbers, while no longer capped at 30, will be determined by the venue. So the venue will really have to follow their COVID restriction guidelines, and those guidelines will let you know what those particular numbers are. So I just wanted to touch on COVID. I'm happy to take any questions on it. I really didn't want to focus. I was hoping that we would have had more positive news yesterday and we could really talk to you about our recovery and renewal strategy, because I think as we move forward, we are really going to have to consider the impact that COVID has had on our communities. I'm just going to say something to my colleagues that are helping me and assisting me this evening. They're posting questions, but they need to post the questions in the Zoom chat because I haven't got the facility to watch on both screens. So can I ask that my colleagues that are supporting me this evening post any questions into the Zoom chat rather than into the Facebook live chat, because I can't see the questions. Let's just talk about the recovery and renewal strategy. We first did this strategy last July, and it was very evident last July from our resident survey, I think we had 3,300 responses to that there were some areas that were being hit hardest, and they were particularly around education, around our local economy and around the health of our residents. And they became priority areas for us last year. We have reviewed those particular priorities and also looked at more data that's coming through, more reports about the long-term impact that COVID has potentially had on the district. And actually the refreshed recovery and renewal strategy confirms that those 3 priority areas are still very important to us. And I'll talk to you a little bit about those in a moment. But what it also says to us, and I think we've all seen over the last year, is that COVID hasn't impacted on everybody equally, and different sectors of the population have been harder hit or hit in different ways. So one of the things it's really highlighted is there's a large number of equality issues with regards to how COVID has hit our for instance, our young people have not been impacted in the same way. The economic impact hasn't been the same for everybody in the district. And so the refresh strategy focuses perhaps more heavily on addressing some of those significant issues that have disproportionately being felt by different groups. And you'll see that in some of the work starting to come through. So with our recovery strategy, we have an action plan. And within that action plan, we divide down into each of the key areas that we're looking at. So if you talk about some of those inequalities, with regards to the education of our children, we know that children with special educational needs and disabilities have been particularly hard hit as a cohort. And what we're doing is looking at how we make sure that the education team here at West Berkshire has the resource to offer and provide support to those families and schools with that particular area of concern. So that would be one example of what we're trying to do with regards to those particular areas. We'll continue to focus on the health of our residents, and I think what we're seeing and hearing is more about the impact of long COVID. We know already that our residents have been telling us that their mental health has been detrimentally impacted over the last few months. It's well over a year, so over the last year, and we'd already started an action plan there. And I hope many of you would have heard about our recovery and renewal strategy. Our Striving to Thriving fund, and that's specifically set up with Greenham Trust to bring it to enable organisations that support people, whether it be children or adults, with mental health difficulties to get the support that they need. So that was already part and parcel of our work. Going forward, we're looking very much more as well at our physical health and making sure that people that have perhaps been more inactive over the last year have the opportunity of more physical activity. So that's certainly something that we're seeing coming through in some of the actions and thoughts around the plan coming out as far as our health's concerned. We're also looking at the local economy and how we can support that. I know I'll speak about hospitality and leisure separately, but as a whole, we want to make sure that where we've seen an increase in the number of unemployment, that we're looking at those particular cohorts that we know have been more adversely impacted. So the 2 cohorts I'd sort of say to you at the moment is we know that women have been more adversely impacted by COVID because of the type of industries that they have previously been working in. And we also know that our young people have been adversely impacted, and we're really keen to make sure that we give them the support that they need to find employment. So last year, when we looked at recovery and renewal, we started a piece of work around a term which is known as NEETs, which is our Not in Employment Educational Training cohort. So we already put some additional resource into supporting those young people, but we've got some great initiatives out there, such as the Kickstart programme, and we've got Kickstarters within the council, and we're actually one of the facilitators for Kickstart in the area. There's some great stuff coming out as well around apprenticeships. So there's the funding for apprenticeships to encourage more firms to take on apprenticeships. So there's a mix between what we can do locally and nationally. The other thing I welcome is the T-level placement funding to encourage more people to take on T-level placements within their workforce. So there's some really good stuff coming out on. The key thing, I think, with regards to the action plan, and it's available on the website, I'm going to stop talking in a moment and start to take some of your questions, is it's flexible. We don't pretend to know everything about COVID and the impact it's had on our society and our communities. So what we want to do is keep a flexible framework in place, which is why I'm talking to you tonight. I'm really interested to hear if you feel there's areas that are of a particular concern to you, something that you're seeing within your own communities, because I know that our communities vary so much across the district, from our rural to our urban. We want to make sure that we're hearing directly from all of our residents about the areas of their lives that they feel are most impacted. So please, as well as asking questions, please feel free to just tell us about what you feel is going to be important in your local area as we look towards recovery from COVID. So I'm going to pause there because I've seen quite a few questions coming in, that they're now on the chat that I can see them. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to start with one, and actually it probably very much ties in to our physical recovery, because we've had a question through about what action is being taken to restart park runs. And as someone that's actually managed to take part in a couple of park runs, I know how popular they are up at Greenham Common, and how many people attend. And actually, how many people attend may be one of the things that is potentially slowing that down. But a straightforward answer is actually it's not our event, so we're limited by what we can and can't do. We have received a request on the 4th of June, so sort of just over a week ago, from the National Park Run Association about restarting up at Greenham. And I think what's important to note here is there's two things that need to happen to enable that. One is the consent from the Greenham Commission, because the Greenham Commission are actually responsible for Greenham Common and the long-term sustainability of Greenham Common. So it's their consent that would be needed to restart. And in addition to that, there is this piece that needs to be done around the risk assessment. So that's working with our public protection partnership teams to risk assess the event. I think if you think about it, and if you've taken part in a park run, we can have anywhere between sort of 400 and 700 people turn up, and we don't always know how many people will turn up. And on the starting line there, it's a mass gathering, and it's a mass gathering where not everybody, nobody would be expected to wear face masks, because obviously you're running. So I think there's the health and safety aspect of how they manage that, and how our local park run manages that, because remember, it's run by volunteers who do a fantastic job, who will have to enable that going forward. So there's this balance between the volunteers being able to put forward a park run in a safe, COVID compliant way, and the Greenham Commission and they allowing that park run to take place. And I know there are some concerns around the use of Greenham Common, because one of the things we've seen a lot over the last year is the increased use of our green spaces, and Greenham's no exception. And I think when you look at the environmental aspects of that and the impact that's had on some of the wildlife up there, there are concerns around that, particularly ground nesting birds and the use of the common by many people with dogs, then putting many runners on top of that. So there is this whole balance. So we will certainly, we think, will work with both elements to see if we can support them. But you have to keep in mind that actually it's not a West Berkshire Council event, but we will do what we can to support that event to go forward, because actually we support the park run, and I know our countryside manager here was instrumental in setting it up in the first place. So, you know, it's great physical activity, it's great community spirit we're seeing there as well. So it's something that we would want to support, but they are the constraints with what we're currently working with. So I'll just sort of answer that question first. Then I've got one around Instagram. Can we get the speed limit restrictions down Mill Lane limited to 20 cars travelling? We do have a speed review panel, and the way to look at that would be to ask whoever your ward member is to submit an application to the speed review panel. If that's something that you feel strongly about, speak to your ward member and they will look at what the evidence is around that to put forward to the speed review panel. So I can't say yes, it would need to go before the panel to look at the evidence, but it's certainly speak to whoever your ward member is and see if we can get that done. We are trying to encourage a greener recovery, and that includes encouraging of walking and cycling, and we have just actually published our new walking and cycling plans for the Newbury Thatcham area. I can't think off the top of my head whether Mill Lane was sat within that, but it's worthwhile having a conversation with your ward member. And what I should say as well, with the Q&As that are coming up, I'll answer what I can, but if I can't, we will take your questions away and let you have a response to them in due course, because while I try to keep an eye on everything, there's no way that I can know absolutely everything going on. So I will attempt to answer all of your questions. There's one around a planning application and the difficulties of getting... Okay, so the issue here is the planning application being granted and the delays to the work started, and whether there's any opportunity to extend that application. Now, applications do have a time, which is quite a wide time, so we'll have to take that away, as it's quite an individual question, and come back on that particular one. But I'm not sure is the answer to your extension, but I know that when you have a planning application, I think off the top of my head that I would like to say it's a 3-year, but don't quote me on that. There is a period of time whereby that extension is live anyway, so that you shouldn't need an extension, but we will confirm that back to you. I've had another one from Sue, which is about parkrun, and I've just explained that, so I hope you're with us, Sue, to hear that. But if not, please, this has been recorded. Here, listen back, because I've just spent some time going through the parkrun stuff. The other areas I think it's just worthwhile touching upon is, and I haven't had any questions about this at the moment, is obviously the education of our children. And this is something that, having been portfolio holder for children and young people for 4 years, I'm really keen that we support our schools. We've done some really good stuff around support with holiday programs, and I know our schools are working hard on this. So we've got a food and activities program that we trialled during the Easter holidays, and that's being rolled out over the summer holidays. So there's some good initiatives going on there. There's some school summer programs. You'll have heard obviously in the news, I think it's 1.4 billion for school catch up. The way that's been distributed, I think it's at £80 per head for pupil funding. However, there is a conversation that is not enough, and I would support that conversation, and I'm already having conversations with our own MP to see if we can escalate that with the Department for Education, because I think there's probably more that we can do, and I feel quite passionate that the education of our children is one of those areas that it's an absolute priority for our recovery. But as West Berkshire Council, there's only so much we can do. It's going to be very much a case of what support goes directly to the schools. Now, there's lots of different initiatives going in, but I know as far as early years are concerned, there's additional training for early years teachers, but actually there's some really good literacy programs that I'd like to see more done around. So we're fortunate here in West Berkshire to run the Dolly Parton reading scheme, and I think when you look at life chances, literacy is one of the key areas that early years literacy is so important to our young people, that I would like to see as much emphasis done on catch up for those youngsters before they sort of progress through the rest of their primary years. And I think there's more nationally that can be done around that, and I will certainly be working with our portfolio holder, Councillor Dominic Bowick, for children and young people, to escalate that need and do what we can to focus on the education piece going forward. I touched on the green renewal. I think that's important to us, and I think there is this aspect of people have been doing more locally, which is positive, and we've seen sort of certainly from our air quality management schemes that less damage being done to our air quality because there's been less vehicles on the road. So we really want to try to encourage people to continue with that walking and cycling infrastructure, and as I said, the plan's just been released for the east of the district and for Newbury, Thatcham areas, and what can be done there going forward. So certainly want to build on the green renewal and feel we've got a good environment strategy which is now in place, whereby a lot of actions will be coming out over the next sort of year, 18 months that deliver against that. So there's lots of good stuff going on. But while that stuff's going on, I think it's probably also worthwhile saying, you know, we want to protect our environment and do everything we can to support that and its sustainability going forward. I would ask you all to consider doing the same, because one of the things that we've just launched is a respect for our open spaces and parks, because we are doing our best with regards to emptying and collecting litter. But we also need people to play a role in that. Please, if you see a full bin, try the next bin or take your litter home with you. We were impacted a few months ago by the fact that our contractors actually had issues with regards to their own staffing due to COVID, but we are catching up on that. But I would encourage everybody to take care of our natural environment that we have around us. The other thing I would say around recovery is some really positive news, which going back to the physical element, we've had some gorgeous weather this week, and I really hope we see the same next week, because the Northcroft Lido will be reopening on the 21st. We're always asked every year, when are we going to get it open, when are we going to get it open? And I know it's a really popular one, and I've been going there since I was a teenager. I have far too many years to remember. But it's a case of we have to wait for the groundwater. It's such an old structure that we have to wait for the groundwater levels to go down enough to enable us to take care of any repairs that are required and to refill the pool. But everything has gone to plan, and it will be reopening on Monday the 21st. I believe that you have to book, so there is a booking system in place for the outdoor pool, and I believe you do it through Northcroft Leisure Centre. It says about asking for a membership number, but I don't think you need to be a member to go, because it's open to the public. So that's one I haven't heard, but it's one we can take away and have a look at. So I'm not sure why you're being asked. I know you should be asked to be booked, because I think everyone knows on a hot summer's day it can be really packed in there, and you can see long queues of people waiting to go in there. And I think they have a maximum number on a normal summer's day. The maximum number will be different because of the COVID restrictions. So I will ask our leisure team to look into the booking experience going on at Northcroft, and we'll come back to you on that. That's something we can certainly post before the 21st. So we will get back to you with regards to that particular one. I'll take a pause there and see if any other questions are coming in. If not, I will talk to you about some other things that are going on within West Berkshire Council. We had our executive meeting last week where we go through and we review performance, which I think is always quite an interesting one. We were looking at the Q4 performance for the end of the last financial year. And I have to say, despite COVID, we actually managed to come in and deliver on many of our key performance indicator areas, which was quite something considering the work that has been done across the council to respond to COVID. So we looked at that. We knew that there would be some issues, and there has been some issues on particular areas, such as some of the road maintenance stuff hasn't got done because of COVID and the impact on our contractors and time and COVID, where they've not necessarily had the staffing level. So we know that there have been some COVID issues, but there has still been a number of things that have gone down really well. So the planning application was one that came in earlier. We've actually managed, been keeping up and turning around planning applications in the time frame that we would expect to do so. So that's been a sort of real positive for us. We've looked after some of our most vulnerable residents, and been making sure that we turn around any benefits claims within an appropriate timescales, because we know how important that is to everybody as and when they come in our front door, to make sure that they get a speedy response. Here's an interesting one. I'm just looking at the questions on the subject of Lido. Are there any plans to make it a year-round asset? There will be a consultation coming forward shortly around the Lido and its use. So yes, we're looking at it. I believe, and bearing in mind I've only been around the council since 2015, I believe this has been discussed for a number of years. So we are going to bring forward for consultation. I think it actually first appeared in the original consultation around the leisure strategy. Would people like us to do something? So it is something we're looking at, but I'm really keen that when we do it with you, because I know how important that pool is to so many people, and how much history that pool has for so many people. So there are some options that are available to us, and we will be looking at a consultation with the public to respond to, so that we get a feel for which direction we should take that. But those options are very much to enable us to have the pool open for longer, because I know it's frustrating that we only have a very limited time period for the pool to be open, but it is a very old structure, and it needs quite a lot of money spent on it to make it fit for opening longer, because it needs a complete change around. So we will be coming out on that. So more than happy to answer that question. I haven't got an exact time frame for the consultation, but as soon as I do, we will be letting you know. And those of you on our Facebook page this evening, just keep an eye on the Facebook page, because we'll make sure that anything like that comes forward, so that everybody has the opportunity to do so. Question come in, let me just see that. With regards to education and health, particularly mental health, is there scope to implement a robust mental health programme in schools via family hubs? Well, interestingly, in schools, via family hubs that support families, as early intervention prevention rather than dealing with crisis. There is quite a lot of work already happening in our schools around mental health, particularly probably our secondary schools, because they've been doing a lot of work for many years now around having mentors in the schools and having mental health mentors, young people that support other young people within schools. And that is really around early help and making sure that people have somebody to talk to, and not looking at sort of long-term interventions, but just having that person to speak to and share concerns with. So there's already been quite a lot of work around this on mentoring within our schools. There are mental health first aid trainers, and there is specific funding to put more mental health support directly into schools. And West Berkshire Council has actually been really fortunate that we've piloted that work, and we've actually seen that come in early into the district. So we were very fortunate that we already had some mental health workers directly in our schools. We also have our Emotional Health Academy here within West Berkshire, which is all about early intervention, and that is schools are able to ask for those early interventions and prevention programs and work early doors through the Emotional Health Academy. So we're actually quite far ahead and advanced with that work. The Emotional Health Academy was something that I actually was, I was there when we set it up, and I actually took part in some of those early intervention roundtable activities that they were going to be doing with young people. Very, very accessible, very user-friendly. Didn't feel that they were mental health interventions. They felt really relaxed, and our staff within the Emotional Health Academy are really good at doing this type of work. So we really do have quite a robust mental health programme already. I suspect the demand for it will increase. I've got no, I'm under no illusion to the severe impact that the last few months have had on our young people, and particularly on their mental health. And I don't yet think we've seen the full extent of that. So I'm positive that we'll probably see more demand for those types of services, but I'm confident that we have the early intervention that's required. We have our family hubs as well. So if we go into the younger age group, we kept a family hub model that works with our schools and those youngsters before they even get to school as well. I think there's probably more that we will be doing and looking to do with that particular area. And I think as the months go by and we see more and hear more around the evidence of we're hearing anecdotal evidence of children with emotional difficulties sort of at that starting school, those early years, but I think we'll see more over the coming months. And for me, what's important is we're able to respond, and I'm confident that we have the right team here in West Berkshire to be able to do that response. We set aside some recovery money specifically for the actions for now. I don't think it'll be enough in the long term, and I think what we will have to do is look at where and how we get additional funding going forward. And I think as far as local government is concerned, there's still quite a lot of uncertainty about our future funding. So at the moment, we had our financial outturn reported last week for the previous year. We had an underspend. We made no secret of the fact that as far as the COVID response has been, we've had plenty of money coming in from central government to support our response. I think it will really be around what the long-term picture looks like for both settlements for local government and a sustainable settlement for local government, and for the impact of COVID and what we will need to do on a more regular basis. So I think that's going to be one where I've talked about we've got a framework in place. It's a flexible framework, and obviously we'll be keeping a close eye on it. But really good question on the mental health. It's something, you know, I think everybody is really concerned about, and wanting to make sure that we find a solution. Well, it won't be a solution. It'll be how we cope and how we support our young people. Okay, I feel I've talked at you for a lot. I'm more than happy to take any questions, or if anybody has any thoughts around anything you feel is missing from our recovery strategy. You know, I've talked about the 3 priorities. The one thing I haven't spoken about on it is one of the things we wanted to do. Well, there's 2 things I haven't spoken about. One is we wanted to capture some of the positives that have come from COVID, and that, when I say that, there aren't many, but the community spirit that we've seen across West Berkshire has been so vital, and you know, I've spoken on these again, we can't thank people enough for what they've done and how they've stepped up in that crisis to support their local community. So we really want to make sure that we continue that work and work with our voluntary sector, work with our community groups, and ensure that they are getting the support that they need from the council as well. So we've been very much a facilitator. A lot of this has been, you know, community led, and I think that's the best way to go. I think, you know, listening to our communities and letting our communities lead rather than us tell is the way that you will get that sustainable support going forward. So we really want to keep that piece of work going. So I know that there's some work going on from our public health team who are looking at this, and I think there's some surveys going out to our voluntary and community sector. So please, if you're involved in some of that, please make sure you're feeding back, because that's something we want to keep. We want to keep this level of community engagement, because I'm really keen that we're hearing directly from the people that we're serving, so that we know that what's important to you. So really keen that we keep that going, which is why I said at the start we're going to test some different formats. And then the other thing is, how do we actually remember? How do we actually mark what's happened over the last 18 months, really, nearly effectively? And I think it's important to do so. So within the recovery strategy, we have made known to everyone we're going to do a blooming into spring, which is where we intend to plant approximately 250 for everybody that we've lost in the community. So approximately 250 white cherry trees across the district, so that we have that permanent reminder. We were looking at what do we do that feels sustainable, and it works with our environment strategy, where we're trying to plant more trees across the district. So that's something that we'll be doing, and there'll be more information coming out about that over the coming months, and how we set about working with our parishes and towns to enable that, and where we put those trees and where it's most appropriate. So that's something that's in the recovery and renewal as well, which I hadn't touched on. I've got a couple more questions coming, so just bear with me while I scroll back up. Oh, that's a good one. I'm sure it's on South today. So what's your thoughts on West Berkshire helping out with immigration challenges highlighted by Kent? And do you think they're in line with that of the people of West Berkshire? I'm really proud of the work that we've done with our unaccompanied asylum seeking children. We have always supported Kent. We've been part of the National Transfer Scheme since I was portfolio holder for children and young people. We found that West Berkshire, we get a lot of spontaneous arrivals because of our location in the Southern Crossroads. So we have, we've got the Southern Crossroads where we've got the main roads coming in, and sometimes we've had lorries turn up with, unfortunately, young people on them that we've had a duty to care for. So we've always had young people coming in, but we did take part very early on in the National Transfer Scheme because recognising that Kent can't cope alone, and the National Transfer Scheme was set up that you take a percentage of your population so that you don't overwhelm your own population. I think, if my memory serves me correct, it was 0.07% of our population, so it equated to about 24 young people, so that you take a percentage and offer them the support. And if every local authority throughout the country did that, then Kent wouldn't be having the troubles that it's currently having. What do I think? Do I think that's in line with the people in West Berkshire? I think we are liberal-minded people in West Berkshire and we want to help others. And I certainly have seen that through the COVID response, the desire to help others. And I think there is a genuine desire. We have a rich history of helping our sort of genuine refugees coming in, and we took part in the Syrian vulnerable person resettlement scheme as well. So I think it's on South today. I think Councillor Bowick was doing a piece, but I've met some of those young people that have really transformed in front of our eyes and done remarkable things, which has been so positive that it's a real pleasure to see. So I know they're up filming at Newbury College, and that is a story of one young person, but I can assure you there are many similar stories attached to the young people here in West Berkshire. So it's something, that I'm proud to say we're part of. Sorry I missed the beginning. Are you considering surge testing as numbers appear to be rising? Apologies if I... No, we're not currently considering surge testing, and West Berkshire numbers of the Delta variant aren't rising rapidly and nowhere near where we're seeing our neighbours. We are keeping a very close eye because we recognise that the virus doesn't respect ward boundaries or local authority boundaries. So we currently have 21 cases of the Delta variant. Last week we had 13. So we are keeping a close eye on it, is what I said earlier. So, but just for reassurance, we have surge testing plans ready and available should we need to enact them. You mentioned hospitality is one area identified as a focus in economic plans, but are there other sectors that are high on your agenda? Yeah, I mean, hospitality and leisure obviously are areas that are particularly badly impacted by COVID. So they're ones that we recognise will need some support. I think the retail area is really interesting. We've been doing the Newbury Town Centre master plan. So we've been looking at the future of Newbury Town Centre, because how do we make sure we're supporting the retail footprint, which, to be honest, was in decline prior to COVID. I think the decline of the retail sector has been, it's far more rapid because of COVID, but we mustn't kid ourselves that there was behaviour changes amongst buyers prior to COVID. And so we're looking at the town centre master plan and retail and how we can support that going forward. We've got plans as well. We've put some budget aside already to do the same for Thatcham and the same for Hungerford. So I think there's a retail element there that we need to also be supporting in that return. And then it's not just the bounce back, it's actually coming back to where we are. And fortunately, the West Berkshire local economy has been relatively resilient because we haven't had such dependence on tourism. So when I talk to my opposite in places like Windsor, Slough from the airport's point of view, they've been really badly impacted by the tourism industry. We haven't. We've got quite a mixed economy, and a lot of our businesses here are businesses that have actually done well throughout this period as well. So we seem to have been quite resilient from that respect, but we will certainly keep an eye on those areas to see what we need to do and what areas need to be picked up as and when. Also, as a professional who lives and works to support communities in West Berkshire, I do partake in the surveys that you send out, but there are other ways that partner stakeholders can work collaboratively with West Berkshire Council. Well, I'm very interested to hear about the other ways. You know, other ways that partners and stakeholders can work collaboratively. Really keen to hear. Really open to new ideas, new suggestions. Please pop something on the chat or send me a direct email, because you know we're really open to suggestions and ideas. And actually, partnership working, I think, is so important. That you know, it's not just West Berkshire Council. I think a lot of people look to West Berkshire Council, but we can't do all of this on our own. We have to do this collaboratively. We have to do this with everybody. You know, we have to work cohesively. So more than happy, send something through for me. Thank you for my response to the unaccompanied. Thank you. Then I've got council doing to generate Northbrook Street, the local market on Thursday and Saturday. In the huge area. However, this area is full of tables and chairs. Yeah. The Market Square is an interesting piece of work, and what I would say is, and I don't want to preempt what's about to come out from the results of the survey that we did around the town centre planning. So it's certainly an area that I think we can utilise more, and you have to find a way of everybody working together. And the tables and chairs out there and the market actually make it quite a bustling. When I've been in to see the both working together, I think, you know, we do have that space available, but really interesting to see how that looks going forward. The market's not vast. It has been moved down Northbrook Street, and there was differing views about whether that's a good or a bad idea. But certainly, I think markets add something to a town. It makes us quite unique, or towns quite unique. So I certainly think that there's more that can be done around the Market Square and interacting with the businesses and the market itself. So watch this question, and please fill in the survey, the response to the consultation that's about to be fed out. Okay, I'm seeing that questions will slow down. I've slowed down, so I will take this opportunity to say any last questions, or I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening, because although we started late, I did say we'd be finished by 6, so apologies for starting late. And if there's any other questions that come up with regards to our recovery and renewal, please do get in touch, or if you've got any particular ideas about elements that you feel are missing, please do let us know, because we really are keen to hear directly from our residents and make sure that we're responding to your needs. So thank you for all joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure as always to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time round.